Oh, welcome to Morning Minutes, Michael Burgess, Mark Novak. And what we're talking about is the new legislation relating to commercial properties, which will impact commercial tenants and commercial landlords. This
big topic
came out a couple of days ago. Mark, we did a great video with one of the leading solicitors in Australia for real estate who had some really good points, but we just want, even though Mark and I were just speaking prior to this, and there's still inconsistencies that we understand. So we thought,
with us, there's inconsistencies with us. We're having a little bit of a banter, and almost felt like a negotiation between ourselves of interpreting the law. And we thought, wow, that's if we're throwing it around between ourselves, it's not a simple topic.
No, not at all. So let's get straight into it. The one thing that's been thrown out is good faith in all negotiations between tenants and landlords.
Yes.
But we also know it can't always work. When you've got a tenant under pressure and a landlord under pressure, they're looking out for themselves, and regardless of what should be done, it doesn't mean they can do it or they will do it, because they're looking at themselves going, I need to put money on my table, you pay your rent. So Mark, what are the key takeouts from the legislation? Because it originally went from 2 weeks ago saying, work it out yourselves.
He did say that firmly to all commercial tenants and commercial landlords, guys and girls, you've all entered into a commercial arrangement, work it out between yourselves. They then firmed up a not a state legislation, a national legislation that was then passed through cabinet. We've got a copy of that link on here. If you SMS us, there's a link there, and if you SMS us, you'll get a copy of that policy that was passed. But basically, in essence, that was a formula. It was a formula saying this is how you are to work out any rental discount if you are in pain, if you qualify to be in pain. Now, the problem was that I read that policy and I watched the Prime Minister's delivery of that policy, and I could not understand it at all. Even after speaking to Greg Jemison, the lawyer, who did an unbelievable show, and I invite everyone to watch it on our Facebook link. Even after watching that, you and I still hung up and were going, what about this scenario, or what about that scenario? It's not really an all-in answer, is it?
No. And to go through the scenario that Mark and I were just speaking about previously is, okay, you've got a gym. This is my understanding of the policy. You have a gym tenant who are closed. So they've got, their revenue has gone down 100%. I know for my gym, they've paused payments. There's no revenue. Let's make the assumption that there's no private training outside of the gym. It's zero, and they're not trying to adapt and do online coaching. So it's zero. Now for the example, they're paying $10,000 a month. Now for the month of April and May, the amount they have to pay is zero right now. Zero. They can't be evicted, and they don't have to pay rent, is my understanding. Now, once the COVID-19 has passed, that tenant will have to pay 50% of their $10,000 a month payment back. The other 50% is gone. The landlord, tenant doesn't have to pay it. Landlord will not recoup it, cannot go down debt recovery. It's gone. $5,000 a month, gone. The other $5,000, they get the option to pay it up to 24 months. They have the ability to pay it back over 24 months. So a calculation of how it would be paid back is, let's say it's done for 6 months. So 6 times 5 is 30,000. 30,000 divided by 24, let's just say $1,000 a month. So when they get back to being full activity and open, their rent's $10,000 plus call it the Corona levy, $1,000 or $800 a month. On top of that, they cannot be evicted. Basically, they can't be evicted for 2 years for that non-payment of rent. Because I had a crazy scenario I threw out to Greg Jemison, and this was a bit mind-blowing. And keep in mind, this legislation normally takes months to go through, and they did it in days. So obviously,
give them a break. These policies normally take 2 or 3 years to go through, and they slam dunked it through in 7 days. So they're not going to get it perfect.
Yeah, but one of the scenario, lots of viewers on this morning, throw out any questions you guys have regarding this, because it's big. Because basically, commercial tenants, if they qualify, do not have to pay rent right now, which is big. So I had
say that again.
Commercial tenants, if they qualify, do not have to pay rent at the moment.
Okay. We'll go through the qualification after as well.
Yeah. So, and then they can't be evicted for it. So I threw an example to Greg Jemison that a tenant had a lease expiring in 2 months. Can they still be evicted regardless of this? The answer is no. And then I said, well, what about can we evict them in 6 months for end of lease? And the answer was no. He basically said that due to the late payments, they have up to 2.5 years to pay back those funds. So they could effectively, if they're not breaching anything else in the lease or do any other breaches, could stay in the property with no lease for 2.5 years, which is 6 months now, and then 2 years after it to pay back without eviction. So for landlords,
and people get angry. People are angry at this topic. Like, I know certainly on social media, landlords feel they have these rights and to rent to get paid to them, because it's not their problem that the tenant has chosen that field of business, and that they should suffer for that. And then there's tenants that are angry out there saying, where is my landlord should be supporting me through this period, in almost in its entirety, that my landlord has no mortgage repayments to pay for the next 6 months. So really, I should have no rent to pay for the next 6 months. And it's pretty harsh on both ends. I think if you take, I think the government's opinion is, if you take both stances aggressively on one end or the other, that's probably not the right thing either.
Yeah, the government stance is we're basically all going to lose, so let's lose together. That's Australian. So this was nobody's fault. No one predicted it. Luke suited up. Yep, always working. Was you all lose together. So the big thing, and then another example is you're down 50% in revenue.
Yeah.
Then the example, if you're down and you qualify, you're down 50% in revenue.
Can we use the example of 40%, just because it chops up nicer? You'll see in a sec.
Okay. So the rent is $10,000 a month, and you're down, 60% in revenue?
You're down 40% in your revenue.
You're down 40% in revenue. Of that 10,000,
I've got to stress to every single person that's watching or talking about this rental, you have to qualify. You have to qualify for any rent relief with commercial. You have to be on the government job. What is it? Job seeker.
Seeker.
Right. You have to be getting that and qualified with government for that and substantiate that. So you cannot. It's not just and it's also for businesses with turnover of less than 50 million.
Yes.
But that's number one. Number two, you're qualified for your job seeker, whatever it is, package. You have to be. If you have not qualified for that, you have to pay your normal rent.
Yeah, and we'll go into that in a second, which will help tenants and landlords and agents. We always have a lot of agents watching this. So this is the dialogue I'll be using and will be using as well. So we'll get into that. So just for the example, your tenant would pay $10,000 a month. They are down 40% in revenue 40%. Qualified.
Yep.
The rent, they have to pay rent today. Rent is due for the month. And that rent, which is due, is 60%. So
So that's a real life example. It's a coffee shop. So they used to sell a lot of coffee.
Yep.
They're not selling as much coffee. They're selling 40% less coffees.
Yep. And they're still open. They're still trading. They're down 40%. 6,000 of their 10,000 a month is due now.
Must be paid. And the arrears must be paid.
Yes. Then after 6 months, you're going to calculate and go, you were given 40% off, which let's say over 4 5s are 20. So for 5 months, they qualified. So that's $20,000 the owner did not get as per the lease agreement. Now, of that 20,000, half is waived. So 10,000 never has to be paid, cannot be chased, landlord not getting it.
Waived, gone, finished, burnt, buried.
Gone. The other 10,000, the business has 2 years to pay it back.
I think you meant to say 20,000.
No, 20,000 total, 10,000 waived. The other 10,000 is going to be paid back within 2 year period.
Okay, guys. So, Michael, what was the figure they were paying on rent originally?
10,000.
And then how much was the revenue dropped?
40%.
Okay, so that's $4,000.
$4,000 a month.
Okay, so two grand's going to be buried, burnt, got rid of, finished.
Yes.
And $2,000's going to be paid back over a payment plan style, payment plan, 24 months once COVID-19 is officially announced as over.
Correct. Now, the other big takeouts are the 6 month period during COVID will be in addition to the lease. So if you had a 1 year lease and 6 months of it is affected by COVID, which everyone is, you're now 1 year and 6 months. Let's say your lease started April or March. So March 1, you had 12 months. Now you have 18-month lease. That's the simple takeouts of what the Prime Minister has put forward to go through. Now, Mark, what's qualification? The biggest thing out there, as he said, so there were 2 payment plans. One was like the Centrelink one, Job Seeker. And then
Job Seeker. Seeker Saver. Yep.
Saver. And the other one is the Job Starter. Now, to qualify as a business owner for this, you must demonstrate 30% drop in revenue. So all landlords out there, all agents out there,
or more. Yep.
Everyone. And because I'm getting a lot of emails and people saying, yep, my revenue's down. I was getting 10,000, now I'm getting 5,000, 50% down. I want 50% off my rent. Like that doesn't work. That does not count.
No.
What needs to be displayed, there's 2 ways. From the agent, you can get all their bank statements, P&Ls, everything. The best way is if they're not on Job Starter, then they do not qualify, because let the government do the assessing on your behalf, because that's a no-brainer for a business owner to do that. There's no real excuse not to do that and be asking for rent relief, because the government has made it accessible. The turnaround times are very efficient, and they're giving you $1,500 for you. You could be a sole trader. You apply for that. That's yours. So there's no reason for it not to be done if you are in legitimate hardship. And if you have staff, it's to be done as well.
That's it.
They're the biggest things. So
they're the biggest ones out of. So I'm just reading it's called the SME Commercial Leasing Principles During COVID-19. I'm just looking at the Act at the moment. Overcharging principles are spoken about in that, which we've covered. Leasing principles, we've spoken about that and covered. Binding mediation, basically, if both parties do not agree, it does go to mediation. That will cost you money, and the they're going to refer back to this code, so be careful. Commencement and expiry, so April 2020. Now this was incepted from the 3rd of April, guys and girls. It was incepted from the 3rd of April. That's when it passed through council. Now, another copy, I'm looking at the code here on the appendix. Qualifying tenants for the proportion COVID-19, a minimum of half is provided electricity waiver, 24 months of the matter, yes. Rent referral, yes. Great. Okay, that's pretty much the whole code. The code is a 7-page code. If you want to access the code, you can get it by SMSing 0460. It's in there.
It's in the chat.
Triple one. SMS the word commercial rent. You'll get a copy of the 7-page code, and you'll get a copy of the video that goes for 30 minutes, done by a lawyer and yours truly, myself, Mark Novak. And that explains very, very detailed from a lawyer's point of view. But we've given the dumbed down version. The reason we've given the dumbed down version is after we did that series, we have had hundreds and hundreds of questions coming in.
Yes.
Emailed, called, SMS'd, Facebook Messenger, on that chat. It's been nuts. So we had to cover it again.
Yes. Yeah, a couple of questions. Okay, Angela, the banks though are definitely not losing. No wave. All right. This was okay.
Yes. Yes. That's that makes me angry.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this one. The banks have come out looking like the best people in the world, like they're doing us all a favor. I was having a walk with a buddy yesterday, and he's like, "Good, the banks." I was like, "Mate, do you realize this has always been there?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "This hardship clause has always been in every contract. They've just never told you about it. They're doing nothing new." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "What they're promoting now, saying we're going to hardship, COVID-19, freeze
delay your payments, freeze your mortgage.
Always been there. It's nothing new. They just never told you about it."
Isn't that true?
I go, now they're telling you, and they're actually making more money on the money. So they're and obviously they're in a far better position to sacrifice cash flow now to make more money playing the long game. So they're definitely not coming. They're definitely not.
Look, the banks are making money. They're not. They're on interest being deferred. By deferring these payments, they are going to be making money. The landlord has taken this proportionate to what choice the businesses, the tenant has chosen to go in business into.
Yeah.
So if you've backed a tenant that's been hammered by COVID, you backed the wrong horse.
Yep. Now, the bank's great comment, Angelo. Sophie, when landlords receive more rent wave during the wave period after it's all over, can potentially push the landlord into a higher tax bracket. Has this been factored in? Well, actually, Sophie, the landlord's technically getting less rent over the year. So because for the 6 months, they're not going to recoup half. So it may scoot depending where this falls, and it will cross over 2 financial years, won't it, Mark? April, May, June. So it's actually going to be split. So technically, I don't.
That's actually a really good point. That's actually a really good point, though. That's actually a really good point.
Because it's going to be more weighted towards next financial year, the longer this goes. And they're going to be technically getting 25% more. So that could put them in, but potentially there's the loss of this year, which could offset that. But great point, has to be factored in.
Well, they could be getting 50% more. They could be getting 50% more depending on how much they get touched up. But you're right. There's that could literally be putting a landlord into. I think those tax brackets jump by 7 percentiles. When they jump up from your tax brackets, 7 cents, I think so 7%. But you're right. That can potentially push a landlord up to 2 tax brackets.
Yes.
And 2 tax brackets could cost a landlord an extra 10 or 15 grand. So it's a very, very good point, and that's a bit rotten.
Ash Brown, what if you have 3 months out from the end of your lease? Great point, Ash, because I went through this with the property we've got at the moment. Unless they gave termination prior to COVID-19, which I believe is, what's the date for the
3rd of April.
3rd of April. Unless the landlord, the landlord agent tenant gave notice, you cannot evict them till the end of this. They can stay there. And if technically business is closed, but they're in there, they're staying there free rent. They will have to pay back half of it, but you cannot evict them until the end of this. And then any debt accrued, you cannot terminate for up to 24 months for that debt as well. Tony Quattreville, thanks for watching.
And
I know
certainly with residential, we've had a couple where we've just said, look, by mutual agreement. Now, guys and girls, this is a directive from government or a policy from government. If you can mutually agree with your tenant, you can do what you want with this lease. So this is like everyone's running for the hills. This is the policy. But if you're not running for the hills, if you've got a very good agent who can broker something, you can potentially broker something where it may be worthwhile, better to have the property vacant. The tenant, that may be music to the tenant's ears, maybe music to the owners, the landlord's ears, and by mutual agreement, that's what you do.
Yes. Now, a big, what was the thought thing? This is based on revenue, guys, as well. Because I said to Mark, what about a tenant sends you P&L if they're down 80%, but they got 100 grand in the bank? Doesn't matter. It's based off business revenue.
Revenue. Doesn't matter how rich or poor the tenant is. It's just based on revenue.
Yeah.
What if the revenue is bullshit and it's being cooked? Well, that's something that everyone's got to decide what's real and what's not real.
Yes.
And a landlord may just throw their head up and go, no, just cry that that's not accurate. And then that's where it's going to be referred to tribunals and courts and stuff like that.
Yes, and that's why I think from an agent's point of view, landlords, it's very important to have that approval from job starter who are qualifying the property as well. But I also I get a lot of small businesses, they may not have books. They do it all themselves. It's not clean. I think now is probably a big reason why having that done properly, because if you can't
absolutely
prove it, if you can't prove it, then you're not entitled to it.
Okay. Our final piece from Angelo, he said, great job, gents, clarifying the complexity of the issue. Natural human reaction is not to pay. Natural human reaction is not to pay. To be honest, I looked across debts that I own yesterday, and I was and due to advice, some advice I got was like freeze payments. Some advice I got was don't freeze payments. I am confused. And to respond to what Angelo was saying, the clock's been kept. So me personally, with my debts, and tenants that are just simply not paying, that don't, particular ones that are not going to qualify for the job keeper program, the clock's been kept. It all is being ledgered that you are a great tenant. If you are a top tenant and you have not missed a beat, you can proudly take that ledger anywhere the next 5 years and say, in hard times, I did not miss a beat. And the same goes for mortgages. If you have been a great mortgage payer, you can say, you can hold your head up high with that ledger for the next mortgage you go for, which you and I did a series on the other day.
Yes.
And you can say, I have been a model mortgage payer. Now, guys, everyone be very, very careful. Yes, the government has said that you can freeze your mortgage. Yes, the government has said you can negotiate on your rents if you're on the job keeper program, but you've still got a ledger. If you accrue arrears, maybe the bank's not going to pin you up against the wall for it today, but and this is what Adrian and I and yourself spoke about, Michael, the banks, I cannot imagine in a year's time that they will not look back and ask, did you regularly pay your payments in COVID-19?
Yeah.
Now they're not going to say, we're not going to give you the loan, but if I was a bank, I would look at that and I would say, very good guy. He actually, he did not miss a beat through COVID-19 with his mortgages. This is a good guy.
Yeah.
Or hang on a sec, they were affected. They're not saying you're a bad guy or a good guy in COVID-19, but they were affected, and they're not allowed to not give you the loan because of the credit ratings that's coming through. Anyway, my point is to not make it complicated. Yep. If you're a great tenant and if you're paying your rent on time, you should be really proud of that ledger, and you will be able to use that ledger in the future to say, this is how bulletproof my business is, and this is why I'm a good tenant, and this is why I want to negotiate on, you know, you may be taking a new premises, trying to negotiate on a new lease, saying, I did not miss a beat.
Yeah, my business is strong.
And you will get patted on the back for it.
Yes.
You will. You can take that ledger and say, COVID-19 did not miss a beat. I'm taking this new premises. I am a model tenant. Seriously. Yep. So I know we've got modeling around helping people that are affected, but I've got to say to everyone, if you can keep up consistent payments with mortgages, if you can keep up consistent payments with rents, I can't help to think that you're not going to be able to use that in your favor in the future.
True. Ash Brown has asked a question: over what period do you compare to prove your turnover is down? I believe it's a month. Maybe you may be able to get away with a couple of weeks.
That question,
to be honest, I don't know if it's been addressed.
That it has been addressed because you've got to be in the JobKeeper program. So Ash, the question is, to qualify for JobKeeper, that 30% loss in rev, is the 30% loss in rev over 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months? We're gonna have to Google that and have a look. But you know, again, we're not giving out financial advice, but we're just interpreting what we know as commercial agents. And we're trying to interpret that legislation.
The big point is, you may not qualify now, but you may qualify next month. There's no rush to sort of get into it. That's what Greg said. You may not qualify now because March was great, and that's where it comes in.
And who was the lady that gave us the clever thing today on one of the comments? And I wanted to
Sophie,
say to her.
She's made another question as well.
Okay, Sophie, I also wanted to say she's very clever with tax, but I also wanted to say that you may qualify. Landlords may qualify under the government's JobKeeper program. So a landlord may be able to qualify, and this is something Greg Jemison mentioned to us, that a landlord may be able to actually put their hand up and say, I got touched up by 30%. I have been affected by 30%. I want repayment. I think under that JobKeeper, there's a 1,500 a fortnight repayment that you may qualify for. I don't know. Ask your accountant about that, Angela.
Great.
But don't forget.
That was a great light bulb moment where it's like, oh, yeah.
It's huge. So, and I'll say it again. Landlords that are affected may, check with your accountant, may qualify for the government JobKeeper program, which is money in your back pocket.
Yeah. That could offset the reduced rent, Mark. That could offset the reduced rent.
It could be more.
Yeah. Sophie's asked, government announces up to 25% land tax waiver on commercial, but has to be passed on to the tenant as we are passing the equivalent percentage or amount. Is this within the tenant's waiver deferral amount or on top? So the same situation, 40% on revenue. How does the land tax waiver work? You know, what's a very interesting point just on that, Mark? I don't know. Well, I think this will only apply to tenants who have a net plus lease. What that is rent portion and then plus outgoings.
Yeah, it's actually, Sophie, read the code, because I know Greg brought this up, Michael. Read the code. It is written in the code how it's handled on a proportionality arrangement. So have a read of the code. To get that code, you've got to SMS 0460 111 111. Send commercial rents to that code. When you do, the code will come out to you, and I've got the code here. There is something like saying the parties will each assist each other in respect to dealings with stakeholders, including government, utility companies, banks, and other official institutions. That's not it. Whoops. It's in here. It is in here, and it does talk about how it's to be proportionate over this period.
So my understanding is, if you've got a gross lease, then it doesn't really affect you. There's no drop. If you have a lease which is rent, say $1,000 a week, and outgoings $500 a week, for example, and that is council rates, land tax, insurances, all included, it comes to $500 a week. Now, if land tax is, and of that portion of 500 of outgoings, let's say land tax was $200 worth of it. If your land tax is now reduced from, well, let's use 25%, $200 to $50, it's reduced, then the outgoings to the tenant from 500 is now 450. You have to pass on that. But my understanding is that won't apply to a lot of tenants, as they've got a gross lease and the outgoings are paid by the owner direct, and they won't take it into consideration. But for a Coles, a Bunnings, for example, or a bank, a pharmacist, a childcare, where a lot of those leases are net plus. So rent plus outgoings plus. That's where that has to be passed down.
All right, I can't seem to find it in here yet. But anyway, I'm sure as soon as I hang up, I'll see it straight away. Okay.
Any other questions, guys? Jump on. Happy Easter. Anything else you wanted to add on that, Mark? Do you want to go through just quickly what today was about, just the takeouts?
Takeouts, long show today. Takeouts are, guys, if you can pay your rent, pay your rent. You will be able to use that for your benefit later. Saying how good am I when you're getting a mortgage, or how good am I when you're getting a new lease on a new property potentially. And guys who are tenants who are affected in an adverse way with their rents, more than 30% that are on that job keeper program, then you are there's a proportionality principle that can be applied, and we've gone through that in the show today. And you can SMS it. We'll send you out the policy and a big video from a 30-minute video with a lawyer.
Beautiful. Any questions, guys? Private message us. We're here. We'll do another talk on it if needed. Just shout out. We are anticipating a residential legislation in the next couple of days.
Maybe tonight.
So we'll see. But thank you, everyone. Any questions, yell out.
See ya. Thanks, legend.
Cheers.
Take care. Happy Easter.